Thank you so much for being here. I would love to introduce Kumuneri Armitage Lapilio and Halau Hula o Ke Kai Kui Hala.
No ana ke akua I kana hele ia laia e ke ki ohu e ka wakoko ho na kino malu I ka lani malu e ho e ho lumai aka o la kahu O Makono Huli.
It takes all of us, one in mind, all of us, one in heart. And all of us with big love for each other, as the commandment of the third say, for this land is perpetuated in righteousness. And so all of us need to stand for peace together once and for all. And our work will never be piled or done. So let your voices be heard throughout the land and building the blocks of peace. So join us all as Hawaii walks with you for peace throughout all the land.
Pono
Aloha kako. That was beautiful. So first, mahalo to Kumuhula Neri Armitage Lapilio and the Halau Hula o Kekai Kuihala. With a lineage of more than 6 generations of Kumuhula and Hawaiian culture and values to students of all ages, with their oli and hula, they have really, I think, centered our intentions and grounded us well. And we offer thanks to them, to Kanaka Maoli, Kanaka Iwi, who have stewarded this land. We also would like to thank all of the organizers of this event, and importantly, not just the illustrious, but the familiar attendees, all of you who have come to be in conversation with us. It's such a privilege to be with you, to be in community with you and connection, and to be here today to hear from a leader who's going to help us, I'm sure, think through with dignity and enormous experience the importance of nonviolent social change, of beloved community, and the things that we can do to steward community and to refresh our gaze, to think through these concepts as they apply to this time and this moment. So first, we are honored this evening to be joined by our president, Wendy Hensel, who will share some opening remarks. Mahalo.
Aloha. What a wonderful evening we have with a packed house tonight. This is wonderful. Can we give one more round of applause to that fantastic performers, music and dancers? Lovely. Absolutely lovely. It is truly my privilege tonight to welcome Dr. Carter and Dr. Carter. We have 2 doctors in the house tonight. And I have to tell you, in the lead up to this event, I had the privilege of realizing we actually are old colleagues at Georgia State University. So really, to me, it's like welcoming old friends in tonight. And so excited to have you in the audience, because as we were just saying, this comes at such a particular moment, I think, for all of us in our society, our nation, and frankly, the world. Dr. Carter, the theme of your presentation, Moral Courage and Nonviolent Transformation, a Virtue Ethical Framework for Social Change, is truly a conversation for this moment. At a time when so many in our society are grappling with division, uncertainty, and conflict, I know that your message will remind us that lasting change is rooted not only in conviction, but something we tend to forget these days: compassion and dialogue and the courage to seek understanding even when we don't agree with each other. Earlier today, Dr. Carter had the opportunity, along with our distinguished panelists, to tour our beautiful campus here at Mānoa, including several sites that were connected to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s historic 1964 visit to the University of Hawaii. Among them was Andrews Amphitheater, where Dr. King addressed a crowd of nearly 10,000 people. And I learned today it only seats 5,000. So what does that tell you about the draw of Dr. King at that time? But standing in those spaces with that incredible history, where those kind of revolutionary and spirit-evolving ideas were exchanged and difficult conversation was welcomed, the pursuit of justice and peace were advanced, truly is an extraordinary thing and a wonderful lead-up to our moment here. Dr. Carter has devoted his career to carrying forward that legacy. His leadership in establishing the Gandhi, King, and Ikeda Institute for Ethics and Reconciliation reflects a deep commitment to fostering dialogue across differences and advancing peaceful solutions grounded in the enduring philosophies of Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Isaku Ikeda. His work reminds us that reconciliation is not passive, it's active, and it's an active practice that requires empathy, humility, and most importantly, moral courage. Dr. Carter's ties to UH go back to at least 2009, when he recognized our own emeritus professor of law, Randall Roth, with the Gandhi, King, and Ikeda Award for Peace for his tireless advocacy for transparency, accountability, and ethical leadership in government and charitable organizations. You know, I think all of us in this room realize universities have a unique role to play in moments like this, and that is reflected not only in all of your attendance tonight, but also we're honored to have Governor Green with us and so many distinguished visitors here in the audience. What we do every day is not just create knowledge. We create connection with people, with place, and we train future leaders to think thoughtfully about hard things upon which reasonable people can disagree and engage without questioning the integrity of the individual. So it is absolutely my pleasure to be here tonight, because this work will challenge all of us, and the speech tonight will challenge all of us to ask, what does moral courage look like in our lives? How can we contribute to this legacy? And how do we go forward and actively transform this place into one that is more peaceful, more compassionate, and more just? Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Dr. Carter, welcome to the university.
Mahalo, President Hensel, for those warm and thoughtful words. And I forgot to tell you that my name is Maya Sutoro, by the way. For those of you who don't know me, I feel like I know all of you, though. And I'll be your MC for the evening. But it is now my honor to welcome UH Mānoa Chancellor Vasilis Sirmos. Now, this evening marks one of his first official appearances in his new roles, so we're delighted to have you. To further set the tone for this significant occasion, please join me in welcoming Chancellor Sirmos.
Thank you, Maya, and aloha to everybody. Welcome. And a tidbit, while President Hensel was at Georgia State, and Dr. Carter at Georgia State, and Dr. Carter at Morehouse College, I was a lonely student at Georgia Tech at Midtown Atlanta. So there you go. We're all from Atlanta, Georgia. So tonight's talk is my first official public appearance as Chancellor of the University of Hawaii at Mānoa, and to have it center around a man like Dr. Lawrence Carter Sr. is truly a distinct honor for me. Our campus serves as a place of innovation and discovery, but beyond the research and scholarship, UH Mānoa has seamlessly woven social change and moral courage into our academic department, institutes, and community initiatives. As a result, our students, faculty, staff, and alumni are not only armed with the best education, but they are also equipped with a true aloha spirit that reflects our host culture's values of mutual respect, compassion, and kindness. As we look to the future of this university, my goal is to ensure that UH Mānoa remains a place of learning where we do not shy away from difficult dialogues, but instead model the very moral courage Dr. Carter has championed throughout his storied career. It is now my great privilege to introduce a good friend, the Governor of the State of Hawaii, Josh Green, who's here to present Dr. Carter with a special message. Josh.
Aloha. Doctors Carter, plural. It's wonderful to see you. Everyone, we're so fortunate to have leaders here that come to our university with our chancellor, with our president, and this speaker series has been special. I think it's clear speaker after speaker have been unique and profoundly wise, and we're grateful. We're grateful for you, Dean Carter, as you are often called. We're grateful that you came to Hawaii. We're grateful because you have been a beacon of light in education and leadership for a long time, and we love having people come to Hawaii and share their mana'o, that's their wisdom, with us, to share their experience with us. You've built bridges, I'm told, between cultures over the course of your career. And that is very important to us as a people in Hawaii. I don't know if people were able to share with you some of the unique parts of this incredible state. One of them is that we are a grouping of peoples, none of whom are a majority. We have about a fourth of us who are Hawaiian, about a fourth of us who are of Japanese descent, about a fourth of us who are Filipino, and about a fourth of us who are Caucasian. And there are many other cultures that have come from across the islands, from Polynesia, from Asia. And it's necessary for us in Hawaii to find ways to care about one another as it's been expressed. You hear the word aloha a great deal. It is a profound word that over time, when you're fortunate enough to live here and be with families, you become a part of this experience. It is possible for people to overcome their differences in this state. And when we see someone like you here, it really is special for us because it is an expansion of what we aspire to when we see someone who has had great wisdom and experience. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Just so you know, I'm eager to hear you. I went to Swarthmore College, left of left. I was born in Woodstock, New York. I was in utero at the concert. So goodness knows what chemicals were flowing through my body at the time. But this makes it particularly meaningful for me to get to hear you, to get to meet your spouse, Dr. Carter, and to just see all of the opportunity that we have to learn from you. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Just very briefly, and this is my statement from all the people of Hawaii, including Jamie, my wife, who is a Hawaiian woman who did her law degree here. It simply says, in recognition, Reverend Lawrence Edward Carter Sr., PhD, on behalf of the people of Hawaii, we are honored to recognize you, Dean Carter, for your lifetime of scholarship, ministry, and leadership. For more than 4 decades, you've served Morehouse College with distinction as Dean of the Martin Luther King Junior International Chapel and as Professor of Religion, shaping generations of students through your teachings on ethical leadership, spiritual formation, and global understanding. By setting a standard of excellence, integrity, and dedication, you embody leadership with aloha. That's our statement to you, so thank you for being here in this space of aloha. Throughout your long and distinguished career in the pursuit of justice, human dignity, and the transformative power of nonviolence, you've carried forward the principles of moral courage and peaceful change. As a participant in the American Civil Rights Movement, you advanced the vision of a more just and compassionate society, something that is badly needed in these times. Throughout your ministry and scholarship, you have preserved and expanded the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., ensuring that his call for a beloved community continues to guide leaders across this world. Dr. Carter, you've enriched the lives of countless individuals, strengthened communities across nations, and helped shape a framework that continues to uplift humanity. As you join the University of Hawaii at Manoa's Better Tomorrow series, we are grateful for your presence and for the wisdom you bring to our islands. With aloha, Josh Green. Thank you, Professor. I think they're going to do a picture here. He gave me this book, which it's a memory because I'm so grateful.
We can have President and Chancellor.
Thank you, Governor Green, for that recognition and for building that bridge between our people and the Doctors Carter. That's what I'm going to say. Alfonso Braggs is currently the president of the Honolulu, Hawaii NAACP, overseeing operations in Japan, Korea, Guam, and Hawaii. He serves on the board of directors of the Japanese American Citizens League Honolulu chapter and the California Hawaii NAACP State Conference Executive Committee. He is the Assistant Secretary of the NAACP National Board of Directors, and we welcome him to present a congratulatory message from NAACP President and CEO Derek Johnson.
Aloha. Doctors Carter, this is certainly a personal privilege and a very, very high honor for me to represent the world's oldest, boldest, the biggest, the baddest civil rights organization. And at such a time as this, we're so honored to recognize a champion of social justice, a man who has left a legacy of so many people, the lives that he's touched and taught, not only on how to dispense with the gospel, but also how those particular words of how humankind should respect and treat each other, how they may be able to use them to benefit future generations. So your work and your impact is great. I have the privilege of delivering this letter on behalf of this association, and it reads, a congratulatory message honoring the distinguished career of Dr. Lawrence E. Carter, Sr. It is dated July the 15th, 2026. The officers and members of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People take great pride in recognizing individuals whose life work and exemplary career have made profound, lasting contributions to our communities and a global society. Dr. Carter has dedicated 47 years of his professional life as the founding dean of the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel at Morehouse College to the pursuit of justice, human dignity, and global understanding, setting a standard of excellence, leadership, integrity, and dedication. Throughout his distinguished career, Dean Carter has stood at the forefront of the civil rights movement in America, demonstrating a steadfast commitment to justice, equality, and moral courage. We need a lot of that right now. The NAACP commends you, Dr. Carter, for your stalwart dedication to nonviolent transformation and for your mentorship of the next generation of Baptist preachers. We applaud your lifelong commitment to advancing Dr. King's legacy and vision of justice, his dedication to civil rights, and his unwavering belief in the dignity and worth of every human being. You've not only achieved unparalleled professional success, but you've also significantly enriched the lives of those around you, and strengthened the moral fiber of our communities and the world. We honor and we celebrate your extraordinary accomplishments, exceptional work ethic, and selfless, inspiring service. This letter is signed by the chairman of the board of directors for the NAACP, Leon W. Russell, and the president and CEO for the NAACP, Derek Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the beautiful articulation of some of Dr. Carter's accomplishments. And congratulations, Dr. Carter. You have also received congratulatory messages from U.S. Senator Mazie Hirono, from U.S. Representative Jill Tokuda, U.S. Representative Ed Case, and Honolulu City Council Chair Tommy Waters, recognizing your extraordinary contributions to peace, to education, and ethical leadership. So please join me once again in congratulating Dr. Carter on these well-deserved accolades. Having seen the remarkable tributes and honors presented to Dr. Carter, I'm now deeply honored to introduce this man whose life work is the embodiment of moral leadership and distinguished ministerial, scholarly, and peace-building ethos. He is an author who's dedicated his career to the intersection of faith and principle, and I love that he has opened his heart to so many people of other faiths and helped us to understand how we are enriched by connection with distant and different others. That is a hopeful and urgent understanding, and I trust that when we all leave today, we will feel a little more courageous and a little more determined to do likewise. As the founding dean of the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel at Morehouse, Dr. Carter has devoted his life to preserving and advancing the legacy, of course, of MLK Jr. And he has established the Gandhi King Ikeda Community Builders Prize to uplift those who are continuing with this bold and beautiful and powerful work. The Institute for Ethics and Reconciliation. At a time when our communities do face division, he reminds us that true leadership is rooted in service, in hope, in our shared humanity, and in our shared kuleana. So welcome, Dr. Carter. Please come and share your comments.
How good it is to leave the hustle and bustle of Atlanta and come to clean, clear, tranquil Hawaii, where the living is easy and you have all of the problems solved. it is quite something to be in paradise. And I said to my wife, this is about the best vacation I have ever had. The ocean is so calming. They've given me a time limit, and they've given me, it seems like 100 people to thank. And so it's clear by the wonderful things that have been said about me that there are many people here taking action for the growth, progress, peace, success, joy, fulfillment, and happiness of others. And so I want you to do me a big favor, and I want you to jump to your feet and give them all a standing ovation. You can do better than that, a little louder. Now, turn to your neighbors on the right and the left and give each one a holy hug. Thank you immensely. For doing that for me. My heart right now is big enough to embrace the world, and you have just helped me do that. At Morehouse College, we gave President Obama an honorary degree in a downpour, and 13,000 people did not move. And to meet his sister, this is a double honor. And the governor and the president and the chancellor and the head of the NAACP and the East-West Center. You're all awesomely beautiful. And Marvin and I couldn't believe that your president came from Georgia State University in Atlanta. It is indeed a small world. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Mr. Adine Strauss is here, and Danny Nagashima, and they have been superb hosts. They have spoiled me. And I've said to my wife, I think I could really live in Hawaii. But I think the Nichiren Buddhists have so spoiled me, when I get on that plane, I'll come to myself. And I'll realize this is far beyond my budget. Well, they've highly advertised what they want me to talk about. And I'll tell you now, my wife is nervous that I'm going to take too much time. But I'm glad she's with me so she can help tell the story of how beautifully you've treated us. I want you to think with me for the next little while from the topic virtue, ethical options, and the courageous intelligence necessary to realize the power of nonviolent transformation. Now, on the paper, I have fewer words than that. I added those extra words so you'd understand. To all the fellow pilgrims in the pursuit of wisdom and peace, I greet each of you with profound gratitude for my wife and I being in the American paradise that we all call Hawaii, even though I've now been told that's the wrong pronunciation. Hawaii, not bad. There are invitations one accepts because they are professionally rewarding. And there are others one accepts because they are personally meaningful. Then there are the rare invitations that feel almost providential. Standing before you today belongs to that final category. It feels like divine providence that I will end my tenure as the founding dean of the world's most prominent religious memorial honoring Dr. King by coming to the city from which he addressed the very subjects that I'm going to talk about. To speak at the University of Hawaii is not merely to visit a campus. It is to stand upon sacred intellectual ground where geography and history converge and where civilizations meet and where humanity is reminded that oceans were never intended merely to separate continents. They were created to connect consciences. The Pacific Ocean is often described as the world's largest body of water. I have come to believe it is something even greater. It is humanity's largest classroom. For centuries, ships have crossed these waters carrying commerce, culture, convictions, and civilizations. Some journeys brought conquest, others carried compassion. Some crossed the Pacific seeking profits, others crossed seeking peace. The question has never been whether humanity will encounter one another. History has already answered that question. The enduring question is whether our encounters will produce conflict or communion, suspicion or solidarity, domination or dialogue. There could scarcely be a more fitting place to wrestle with that question than the beautiful island of Hawaii. These islands are not perched upon the margins of civilization. They stand at its meeting place. Here, East meets West. Ancient traditions converse with emerging futures. Indigenous wisdom encounters global scholarship. Diversity is not merely tolerated, it becomes the very architecture of community. Hawaii reminds us that difference need not become division, and that plurality need not produce polarization. That truth has never been more urgent than it is today. We inhabit a century overflowing with technological brilliance while suffering from an alarming poverty of moral imagination. Never has humanity possessed greater power to communicate, yet never have we struggled more profoundly to understand one another. we have mastered the science of connection while neglecting the sacred art of communion. Our devices have become increasingly intelligent, even as our public discourse has become increasingly impoverished. The crisis before humanity is not fundamentally technological. It is philosophical. It is theological. It is profoundly human. She just held up a sign that has 10 minutes left on it. Our greatest danger is not simply that we possess powerful weapons. Our greatest danger is that we have forgotten the immeasurable worth of the people those weapons threaten. Every age develops a remarkable set of technologies. Only a few cultivate extraordinary humanity. That conviction did not originate with me. It was planted in my heart by a man whose footsteps forever sanctify this campus. In 1964, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came to this university carrying neither political ambition nor personal acclaim. He came bearing a moral vision. His dream was never simply about racial integration. It was about the reconciliation of the human family. His concern was never merely the destiny of America. It was the destiny of humanity itself. Over the decades, I have repeatedly returned to the lectures Dr. King delivered here. Each reading reveals something I had previously overlooked, such as the nature of prophetic speech. Great words continue growing long after they have been spoken, because they speak not only to one historical moment, but to every generation courageous enough to hear them. For me, however, Martin Luther King Jr. is not merely someone whose speeches I have studied. He is someone whose life transformed my life. As a young boy, I experienced what I now recognize as one of God's great gifts. I met Dr. King personally when I was in the 10th grade. At the time, I lacked the historical awareness to appreciate the significance of that encounter. Children rarely recognize history while they are living inside of it. Yet memory has preserved certain impressions with astonishing clarity. I remember his gentleness. I remember his dignity. I remember the remarkable harmony between his words and his spirit. There are gifted speakers whose eloquence exceeds their character. There are brilliant scholars whose intellect surpasses their compassion. Martin Luther King Jr. belonged to that exceedingly rare company of souls whose public voice and private virtue formed a seamless whole. He possessed moral authority because his life authenticated his message. During that unforgettable encounter in the 10th grade. Dr. King offered me a simple encouragement. He urged me when I was 16 years old to pursue my education at Morehouse College. The year before, he extended that invitation. I was in the 9th grade, and I was told that I would never go to college because I couldn't read. A test that I took convinced the person who told me that. His words, Martin Luther King Jr.'s, changed everything. Not a test, but his observing me without me knowing he was watching me. As I had gotten permission to go into a pastor's study and examine his library. And I examined 2 walls of books, not knowing that I wasn't alone. And when I turned to the 3rd wall, Martin Luther King, I saw, was staring at me in a very small room. The pastor had told me that his office was empty. I immediately concluded he lied. History is often redirected, not by dramatic spectacles, but by quiet conversations. A sentence spoken in kindness can become a summons. A brief encounter can become a lifelong vocation. Looking backward across the decades, I now understand that what appeared to be advice was for me a calling. From that day forward, Martin Luther King Jr. became my enduring mentor. Though assassination would eventually silence his earthly voice, his moral imagination continued shaping my own. His understanding of justice became the lens, the framework through which I interpreted society. His theology of love became the foundation of my ministry. His philosophy of nonviolence became my understanding of authentic leadership. My educational pilgrimage eventually carried me through Virginia Seminary and College, and later to Boston University, where I immersed myself in theology, ethics, philosophy, and the enduring relationship between faith and public life. Yet, every classroom ultimately led me back to one central question: how does one become not merely an admirer of greatness, but a participant in it? That question eventually found its answer at Morehouse College. When I was entrusted with the privilege of becoming the founding dean of the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel in 1979, I did not view the appointment as a professional achievement. I regarded it as a sacred stewardship. For nearly 6 decades, I lived, taught, preached, mentored, and reflected beneath the spiritual shadow of one of history's greatest moral leaders. People often ask me what it was like to spend so many years preserving Dr. King's legacy? My answer surprises them. I did not spend my life preserving Dr. King's legacy. I spent my life discovering its depth. For the longer I studied Dr. King, the more I realized that history has often misunderstood him. We remember the marches while forgetting the meditation. We celebrate the speeches while overlooking the spiritual disciplines that gave birth to the speeches. We admire the public prophet while neglecting the private pilgrim who spent countless hours in prayer, study, and self-examination. King understood something our generation desperately needs to recover. Justice without love becomes vengeance. Love without justice becomes sentimentality. Power without conscience becomes tyranny. Religion without compassion becomes idolatry. The purpose of human life is not simply to achieve success, but to cultivate significance, not merely to accumulate influence, but to enlarge humanity. That conviction became the guiding principle of my own ministry. During my years at the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel, I had the privilege of mentoring hundreds of ministers, scholars, civic leaders, diplomats, and students. And while their vocations differed, my message remained remarkably consistent. Character precedes competence. Integrity precedes influence. Service precedes success. Leadership is never first about commanding others. Leadership begins with governing yourself. It was while living within King's moral universe that Providence introduced me to another remarkable teacher, one whose philosophy would expand and deepen and universalize my understanding of dialogue, dignity, and the future of civilization. His name was Daisaku Ikeda. And meeting him transformed not only my understanding of peace, but my understanding of what it truly means to become fully human. It was in living beneath King's moral horizon that Providence sent me a Baptist preacher, a Japanese Nietzschean Buddhist, an extraordinary teacher, a man whose life persuaded me that peace is never merely negotiated between nations. It is first cultivated within the human heart. Peace is the integrity of right relationships. Some people inherit power. Others accumulate influence. A precious few enlarge the moral possibilities of civilization. Daisaku Ikeda belonged to that rare company, and he understood that the greatest revolutions are not political before they are personal, not institutional before they are inward, not geopolitical before they are spiritual. His enduring question was never, how shall we defeat our enemies? His question was always, how shall we transform ourselves so completely that enemies themselves may become unnecessary? That is courageous, virtue, ethical intelligence, which is my interpretation of Christ's consciousness as the light of God and the vibrational harmonizing power of the mystic law. Our age has celebrated technological intelligence. It has rewarded competitive intelligence. It has monetized artificial intelligence. But humanity's future depends upon something infinitely rarer: compassionate intelligence. Conscious, guided intelligence. Courageous intelligence is the moral capacity to choose dialogue over domination, understanding over making accusations, reconciliation over retaliation, and hope over fear, even when history whispers that such choices are impossible. I am not finished, but I'm going to stop here because I have received a second signal. Thank you very much.
I don't know about you, but I needed that, right? A little bit of church. I really do think that we need reminders. I call it washing the eyes. We need to refresh our vision sometimes. And although I loved hearing about your encounter with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, I also know that there are people in the audience who have encountered you today and who feel that necessary mettle, that new courage, and that openness to do the hard thing of leaning into their discomfort and finding home in the presence of another, and especially someone perhaps who feels like the other at first. And so thank you so much for those remarks. And you know, the thing about it is that although we're not seeing a lot of boycotts now, you know, the deeper Kingian teachings, I think, of reconciliation, of redemption, of forgiveness, of beloved community, they are so relevant today in our workplaces, in our families, in our politics. And that mindset of attacking the problem, not the person, is something that requires practice, and that possibility of reflection that leads to action, I think, is something that we have to honor, all of us today. So I'm going to ask the audience to please leave here, before leaving here, rather. You're going to take your tools, your skills, your community, your passion, and think of at least one small commitment to action that you can take after that reflection that will mentor, that will de-escalate, that will connect, that will build bridges. And I think, we just have to remember that, that we need to practice. And as you were saying, this idea of thinking of Dr. Martin Luther King as someone who meditated and who engaged in spiritual practice, not simply acts of profound verbal imagination. He was extraordinary in that regard, right? He moved us with his words. But it is that quiet moment that we are all capable of, even if we're not all great orators, right? There are things that we can do to aid. And here in Hawaii especially, we can make use. I hope that you learn, more or have already about Queen Liliuokalani and her commitment to nonviolence, or, the beautiful and bountiful work that's happening in our communities here, and the fish ponds and the farms and the lo'i and the places of community, and in the places of conversation. My students, certainly 30 some years as an educator, like you, I think are my antidote to grief. And the communities here and the haumana, the keiki, the young people are extraordinary. And they will fall in love with you and you with them. So please come back, consider this a forever home and us your forever family. Okay, so now I have the honor of announcing, as the panelists, if you can please make your way up to the stage, we would like to announce the winners of the 5 copies of Dr. Carter's A Baptist Preacher's Buddhist Teacher. So if you hear your name called, please raise your hand so that our event staff will be here to hand you your book. I was trying to cultivate a little Oprah energy. And you get a book. But I don't. Well, there we go. I was about to use my teacher voice. Carl Eschbach, and please forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but Carl. Carl, where are you? Did you get your book? You got? Okay, good. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Carl. And Allison Peterson. Allison, where are you? Okay. Ken Tengen. Ken Tengen. And Monica Yasuda. Yes, Monica. Monica was in the College of Ed, one of my students a while back, and was always trying to get me to come to Soka Gakkai events. So today, okay, thank you. Thank you. Should I make my way over there? Or I can, okay. And so now I'm honored to introduce our panelists who have joined Dr. Carter on stage. Our first panelist works with me, and he has taught classes on Gandhi and King philosophy. He is newly retired 2 weeks ago after how many years, Brian? 40 years. Newly retired from the Matsunaga Institute for Peace at the University of Hawaii at Mānoa. And then we have Ann Hartman, who is the Director and Dean of Professional Development and Education at the East-West Center. And our final panelist is Adine Strauss, who is the General Director of Soka Gakkai International USA. Amazing. Okay, I am going to, I guess, come sit over there. Yeah? Thank you. Okay. Aloha, everyone. Thank you for being here. So, first, I'd like to ask questions of Dr. Carter. Thank you again for those incisive words. Before the titles and the institute, I know now, of course, that encounter when you were 10 did pull you into the work. Were there other moments that you can point to that enabled your conviction, that harnessed your sense of possibility, that we might draw inspiration from, as in terms of your work, not only as an educator but a peace builder? How did you become, and how did you sort of arrive at the place where you knew or understood that this was your path and this was your purpose in the world?
Testing. Is it working? The first two things. The first occurred when I was 5 days old. And I was not told this until I had finished college, had graduated from seminary, was ordained, and was married. And my family was all gathered watching Alex Haley's Roots on TV. And during a commercial, my mother and aunt started talking about the family roots. And I discovered, my mother spoke up and said, well, when you were 5 days old, we took you to church for the first time. And without any warning, my maternal grandmother took me in her arms, my mother said, and walked to the front of the congregation. And no one knew what she was about to do. And she stood in front of the church and prayed out loud, Lord, make this boy a preacher. No one ever in my family tried to influence my career, not once. And there I was, an ordained Baptist minister, fully licensed, thinking that between the 9th grade and the 12th, I had wrestled with a calling and finally decided I was being called to a ministry. That's the first thing. That prayer changed my life.
Were heard, obviously.
I walked out of the house, up and down the street in the night, trying to fathom the power of prayer. The next thing happened 75 days after I first appeared in the world. This will mean a lot to you. The 75 days arrived on December 7th, 1941. Wow. All through the life of my parents, the people who raised me, they're all gone now. I heard the stories of what happened when my maternal grandmother's oldest son lost his life on December 7th at Pearl Harbor. And I'll stop with this one more illustration. I was 7 years old before I met my father. And the reason I had not met him was that shortly after I came into the world, he was drafted into World War II. And one night, he was standing guard outside of a tent with a friend, and a hand grenade exploded at his feet. And when he opened his eyes, his best friend's internal organs were scattered all over his body. And my father lived in and out of the Chillicothe's, Ohio's Veterans Hospital. And I can only remember him living with us 1 month in my life. And I did not even get to go to his funeral because I did not learn that he had passed. The government did not tell me until he was long gone. All that I've shared with you started me seriously thinking at the age of 15 about becoming a Prince of Peace. Those were the most powerful things, but there are a series of others that follow that.
Yes. Well, that's extraordinary, and I know that there must have been numerous other moments and individuals and prayers and supplications that kept you moving down the road when you... I think about courage differently, right? I used to, before becoming a mom, on occasion jump out of planes, tandem, but I don't do that anymore. But I think about courage now as walking down that long road and not being certain where you're heading or who's beside you or who's behind you and where you're going to end up and when you're going to get your next meal or get a rest or have ablution and care, and you still walk, you know, and you keep walking. And you've walked a long road, and I know that there were probably powerful voices encouraging you and requesting, perhaps, that you aid them, teach them, nourish them, and allowing then for hopefully for you to be nourished by them as well. I think that some of those people are probably at Morehouse, but I also know some of those people live far away, and Daisaku Ikeda was one of them, as you mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you chose to follow that invitation, and also, you know, given that you've built an entire institute based on the idea that Dr. King, Dr. Ikeda, Daisaku Ikeda, and Mohandas K. Gandhi and Mahatma Gandhi belong in the same conversation. And so for those less familiar, perhaps, can you speak a little bit about how these three thinkers speak to one another and, you know, those things that perhaps they were able to teach one another, but also the things that they most assuredly had in common in that shared humanity?
When I started reading Dr. Ikeda's writings that were given to me by members of the... When I started reading Dr. King's writings that were given to me by members of the Soka Gakkai International, I discovered that he was the author of more than 200 books. And to make a quick shift, the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi fill 100 volumes, each over 500 pages. He was a journalist and a lawyer. Martin Luther King, Claiborne Carson, you may know that name, the editor-in-chief of the collected papers of Martin Luther King, the first editor, at Stanford University, he called me one night, and he said, there's something I think you need to know. He said, when we finish the collected works of Martin Luther King, who only led the movement 12 and a half years, his collected papers will be 14 volumes, each approaching 600 pages. But those 14 volumes only represented 3% of his work. Okay. There's a commonality. They were all writers and they were journalists. And they all read Henry David Thoreau's Civil Disobedience. And Martin King read it 3 times and said it was the first time he learned how to deal with unjust governments. They were all men of prayer. Gandhi had prayer meetings. The civil rights movement in this country was all about prayer meetings all over the nation. They had prayer rallies. And all of the world who's aware of Dr. Ikeda knows that Nichiren Buddhism is built on the Nichiren chant, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. They were all of Archbishop Tutu's understanding that you cannot have peace without forgiveness. There will never be peace without forgiveness. And they were all men of nonviolence. They all believed in the sacredness of human personality and that everyone should respect everyone's humanity, even your oppositions. They were all interested in reconciliation and in redemption. And so they all went in search of the pattern that unites people across all boundaries. But to do that, they all had to get out of some boxes. Gandhi, a Jain who practiced an original Hinduism. King, an African-American Christian who said one of his best friends was Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist, whose philosophy he agreed with. Ikeda. There are so many things I could say. He has published hardback copies of dialogues that he had with scholars, with experts, with authorities, in a large variety of disciplines. And he traveled all over the world, though he only spoke one language. And with the power of his pen, he built the Soka Gakkai from just 5 million in Japan to 12 million in 192 countries and territories. But they all got out of boxes. They got out of the race box, the nation box, the religion box, the diet box, the culture box. They got out of all those boxes to visit and to dialogue. There is much more, but I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Wonderful. So we're going to get out of our boxes. So I want to have a question for the panel, and not everyone. Thank you. Not everyone has to speak to each question, but I did want to invite those of you who wish to comment to do so. Each of you works on peace and reconciliation in a different way, whether through diplomacy or people-to-people diplomacy, through teaching, through the faith community, through scholarship and writing. Where do you see Dr. Carter's framework and ideas kind of intersecting with your own at this stage of your life? You know, where do you find that shared space and relevance?
Well, I think the intersection is that it's difficult to disagree with him. We're in a peculiar political, social moment in the United States in which everything he said is negated. And when you get your bank balance and it's all negative numbers, you know you're in trouble. And what Dr. Carter has said ought to be plain, everyday common sense. That it's not is astounding if you think about it. But I think the intersection is that, well, I suppose I can't say you're an original thinker because you've studied King and Ikeda and Gandhi and many others. But yeah, it's common sense. End of speech.
So you're maybe not wholly original, but certainly sensible and able to sort of aggregate all of these learnings and bring them to bear in stories that make them feel applicable and relevant to all of us. So thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I also I'm never going to disagree with.
Yeah, but I think, first of all, it's such an honor to be part of this panel representing the East-West Center. And there is so much in the work that you've presented today that aligns with the work that we do at the East-West Center from our very founding. And I think one of those intersections is the fact that you have brought together these faith traditions from both the West and the East and found those common threads through them in such a beautiful way that reminds us that, yet we have more in common than we have different, and that there is that sense of shared humanity. I have the privilege of having a more optimistic vision, I think, about today, in part because I work at the East-West Center, and I work with 300 students that come and live with us from more than 40 countries around the world, representing 90 different academic disciplines. And they live in a dorm with really small rooms and shared bathrooms and shared kitchens. And what they do there is find a shared humanity with one another across all of those different cultures, all of their different disciplines. That doesn't even begin to describe the diversity of our student population across languages and religions. And yet, together, they live together, they learn together, they share ideas, they share new perspectives, they share their passions, and through those conversations, through that diversity, they actually find new ideas, new solutions to our shared challenges. And so I really feel privileged because I get to see that happening every single day. Some of our students are here today, and they also have a sense of passion and service. They believe, I think, still in the power of positive change and that they do have the power to be actors in this reality that sometimes feels like it's being put upon us elsewhere. But I think, we encourage our students to do community service, both with each other and in our community, with the hope that they will see that even small actions can make a positive change, especially when those actions are done collectively. And so I hope, and our students can nod if that's correct, that doing the things they do together at the East-West Center helps them have that experience of the power of collective action, and to know that that is real and works. And so, yes, so maybe I come with a little more hopeful vision.
Well, I think,
for
yeah,
today.
well, I think, yeah. And I think for Brian and I too, our students are that, again, that antidote to grief. Just as so, I can attest to the fact that many find connection at the East West Center. My mother and father met and fell in love there. So I owe my very existence to the East West Center. At the 50th anniversary, I was there, and I asked people to raise their hands if they had met their beloved at the East West Center, and I tell you, half of the room raised their hands. There is something about putting people in brave spaces where you are working and living together and you are invited to share of yourself so generously. It's really important that we continue to support those opportunities, and I'm so grateful that you do. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'd like to, I'm sure this thing is quite working. Just talk into it.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. So I think there's a number of ways that Dean Carter's, I think, life and his work really intersects, or I should say really inspires me. First is, that as he shared a little bit of, how he experienced some unbelievably bitter things in his life, but how he used that as a springboard to tremendous growth, spiritual growth. And I think people who have, as human beings, we experience all kinds of things. And sometimes things are not so great. And for example, if I look at my own journey, growing up in a completely different set of context from Dean Carter, but I grew up a complete atheist. A reason being my parents were on the receiving end of Hitler and Nazi Germany. And they, basically said, there is no such thing as, spiritual power or a power beyond whatever, because who would have allowed such a thing to happen, i.e., the Holocaust, etc. And but for me, I was always had a question about what, is there, some sort of divine power or something greater than me out there? And my conclusion was no, adamantly no, until I was about 24 years old. I don't know, it's also maybe partially because I'm a New Yorker, and I grew up, and you think, everything if you grow up in New York. I don't know, that's not such a healthy thing. But anyway, that, Dean Carter's, first is that the way he encourages people to use, just as, Dr. King did, just as Gandhi did, to use these negative experiences as springboards for spiritual growth, for intellectual growth. And second is, and he touched on this in his wonderful words earlier, is his emphasis on individual transformation. And a few months ago, a bit closer to Dean Carter's official retirement date, we kind of celebrated him at our Atlanta Buddhist Center. I had the privilege to be there as well. And he shared with us that evening, he shared some beautiful words again, and he shared, be peace, be compassion, be love. And so he talked about how all the change that we want to see in the world has to start from within. And the more we see things in our environment that seem to be screaming that, all the problem is out there and not in here, the more fiercely we have to self-reflect. And this takes a tremendous act of self-mastery. And this is, again, something that I think Dean Carter talks a lot about. He spoke about it tonight. And I think this is, again, another thing that I really feel intersects with what we do in Soka Gakkai and my own personal perspective on things. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up with what you said, that part of the title of the talk was virtue, which you didn't elaborate on. But yeah, that's the key, the personal discipline, right? And having integrity. And there are certain people that we read about in the newspaper recently who don't have integrity. And that's the problem. And Dr. Carter has been hitting that nail on the head over and over again. Maya.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I'm out of time, but I asked if I could take 5 extra minutes, and I didn't actually get an affirmative response. I'm not sure, but I'm going to do it anyway. Just because, it's so rare, thank you, to have everyone here and all of you. And so I wanted to ask this final question to everyone here. Nonviolence does feel to some like a historical concept that is a lovely idea, but perhaps impractical in the presence of so much violence in the world. And so I wanted to ask you to just share in closing for our audience, what does it actually demand of us living through today's conflicts and divisions? And what is one thing that you most want each of us to carry with us out of this room?
Well, the note I took, I think I got right, is peace is integrity of relationships. I think that was a line in the speech. Right relationships. Yeah, we don't want wrong relationships, do we? I think that's what it takes.
Testing. Is it working?
Yeah, just speak right into it. It's automatic.
Hello?
Was that your answer?
Not quite. I think the most simple, short response to the question is you cannot have what you're not willing to be. As you meditate on that, I want you to think about the chief executive officer of the nation, who talks a lot about peace. He wants the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm going to put an ellipsis right there. I could say a whole lot more.
Yeah, it's hard to follow that. And but I will say that I think what comes to mind in the context, again, of the work that we do at the East-West Center is, and I talked to, I think, one of the graduates of Soka University about this, is about pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone and to be willing to be uncomfortable and to have those conversations that might challenge even really fundamental things that you believe and understand, or ways that you understand the world, and to push yourself to have the difficult conversations. I think it is, ironically, again, and you mentioned this about communication, today easier than ever to find our tribe and to stay there. Because we have them online, and it's very easy just to communicate within our own people that agree with us effectively. And so I think the power of what we see again at the East-West Center and with our students is that willingness to put yourself out there and to have conversations, whether by choice or because you just happen to be in the kitchen with that person and they happen to be cooking next to you and you have to have a conversation with them, but to really push yourself to learn something new and to have that conversation that is and to be, I think courage, I come back to your idea of courage, but to have the courage to be wrong and to feel like, okay, I can change and I can transform and I can have a new way of thinking about something. I see our participants do this all the time. I'll just mention we had Pakistani and Indian journalists come together on a cross-border dialogue program. And for some of them, the notion, the negative ideas about the other are so powerfully ingrained in their community, in their politics, in their newsrooms, that for them to take that step out and to think that there's another possibility of understanding the other, of understanding those folks, that's part of the journey, is the willingness to be transformed. So.
Thank you. So I would like to, echo what Ann shared, and of course what Dean Carter shared. And I think courage, to be nonviolent is requires tremendous courage. And first is actually this year marks the 30th anniversary of Mr. Ikeda's last visit to the United States. And on June 13, 1996, he gave a wonderful speech at Columbia University. He talked about the conditions for global citizenship, one of which was courage. And what he meant specifically was courage not to be reflexively denying difference, but the courage to be able to deal with people of different perspectives who are different from you, and be able to respect that. And that's one kind of courage I think is absolutely necessary for nonviolence. But I think there's one more, and that is courage to actually stand firm in nonviolent principles in a situation where 99.8% of the world will, criticize you and say, you're just because you're a coward or whatever. And, this is something that I think Gandhi himself encountered over and over, not just from the quote-unquote the other side, i.e. the British or whatever, but from within his own ranks. Why aren't you more violent? Why aren't you encountering these things more? And actually, Mr. Ikeda spoke here in 1995 at this very building, and he actually shared a passage from Gandhi, which I'd like to share here. He said, this is quoting Gandhi, "You have to stand against the whole world, although you may have to stand alone. You may have to stare the world in the face, although the world may look at you with bloodshot eyes. Do not fear. Trust that little thing in you which resides in the heart." So this is, when I read this, I was so touched. I could imagine how lonely Gandhi must have been in his battle. So yeah, I feel that courage, those kind of two kinds of courage are really absolutely necessary.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and there is this combination in all that you folks have said about what is necessary, the need to be curious and open and to engage in flow, to be flexible and changeable, but also to stand firm, to be to know who you are, and to act in alignment with your principles, and so that dual, it's not contradictory, right? But it requires, I think, efforts on many fronts, and I know that those of you in this room, because I know many of you, are extraordinary, and you have the necessary qualities, the temperament, the skill, and the want to not give in to despair and to indeed act in ways that are going to lead us down a more courageous, thoughtful, and peaceful path, and into a future that is emboldened with each of your talents. And so what I'd like to do is first, thank you again, Dr. Carter, and everyone. And then I'd like to invite, for those of you who have not purchased a book, to do so. They will be available for sale, and Dr. Carter will be outside to sign your personal copy. And there are going to be light refreshments. But what I'd like for you to do then is to take that commitment that you made, the promise to yourself and to all of us, to our beloved community, and maybe share that with someone. What is one way that perhaps you are going to demonstrate courageous change and take some small step forward and do things just a little bit differently, or to do more of the same, and to share that? Because when you articulate, when you announce, when you make that commitment out loud, it is much more likely we find that you will follow through. Just because life is hard and we are busy, and so we need those reminders and accountability partners and memories of that articulation. We would like, in closing, to extend our deep gratitude to Soka Gakkai International USA, the Tony Group Foundation, and all of you for being a part of tonight's Better Tomorrow speaker series at UH Mānoa. And aloha. Mahalo.